Elena, a woman in the prime of her life, having crossed the age of 55, felt her journey had veered off its intended course. 2 years prior, her husband, Jonathan, a kind-hearted man, yet prone to detachment and consumed by work, had passed away. In the wake of his absence, Elena had envisioned tranquil days tending to her garden, enjoying family gatherings, and spending evenings lost in a book. However, fate had other plans. Last summer, Nathan, Jonathan's 28-year-old nephew, arrived at her home, having recently left the bustling city life behind. He sought solace and peace away from the urban clamor. Initially, he kept to himself, taking long walks in the woods and engrossing himself in books on the veranda. But gradually, conversations began to blossom between them. About everything and nothing, Nathan possessed a rare gift for asking questions that made Elena feel truly seen and understood. She couldn't help but notice how profoundly different he was from Jonathan. While Jonathan had always seemed preoccupied, Nathan exuded a sense of presence and tranquility. His company brought a lightness and a feeling of new possibilities that Elena hadn't experienced in years. One day, as sunbeams pierced through the dusty windows, Elena mentioned the attic, a space long overdue for attention. It was one of those projects she perpetually postponed, a repository of memories and dust. Tying her hair back, she began sifting through old boxes. Nathan appeared in the doorway, his shirt clinging to his skin from the summer heat. "Need a hand?" he asked with a slight smile. Without waiting for a reply, he effortlessly lifted a heavy suitcase as if it weighed nothing. "Careful," Elena warned. "It's probably older than both of us combined." Nathan chuckled, gently setting the suitcase down. "All the better that I'm here to help." As they worked, they stumbled upon a box of old photographs. Elena couldn't help but smile, showing Nathan pictures from her youth. He examined each one closely, his green eyes. "You were so beautiful," he murmured, holding a photograph of a 20-something Elena. She waved off his compliment. "That was so long ago." "It doesn't matter," Nathan countered. His gaze lingered on the photo, then met hers. In his eyes, something unspoken yet distinct was present. The air in the room seemed to thicken, and the space between them subtly shifted. Elena averted her gaze to the box before her. "These old things are just a reminder of a life that feels so distant now." Nathan moved closer. "Maybe you don't have to seem so detached," he said softly. Elena froze, unsure how to respond. His words hung in the air, carrying a weight she didn't know how to bear. "Elena," Nathan said gently, touching her hand as he took the photograph. "You don't have to do this alone. Life doesn't end just because someone you loved is gone." Elena looked at him, her heart pounding. She wanted to say so much, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she simply nodded, allowing his words to sink into her consciousness. That evening, an unusual quiet settled over the house. Nathan went for a walk, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. She sat on the veranda with a cup of tea, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Her mind kept returning to the attic and Nathan's words, which had stirred something new within her. When he returned, his cheeks were flushed from the cool night air. He sat opposite her, looking thoughtful. "Are you all right?" he asked, breaking the silence. Elena nodded, though she wasn't entirely sure. "Just thinking." She hesitated, then decided to be honest. "About what you said earlier, about not having to do this alone." Nathan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I didn't mean to overstep," he said softly. I see how much you carry, and I know what that's like." He nodded, his face serious. "Losing loved ones, it changes you. It makes you feel like you have to keep everything together, alone. But you don't, Elena. You really don't." Something in his voice, sincere and almost pleading, made her believe him. For the first time in a long while, Elena felt a burden begin to lift from her shoulders, if only slightly. They sat in a comfortable, almost comforting silence for a long time. When Nathan finally rose to leave, he paused. "Good evening, Elena," he said quietly. "Good evening, Nathan," she replied, watching him go. The next day, Elena found herself seeking reasons to spend time with Nathan, whether it was tackling household repairs or working in the garden. She was inexplicably drawn to his presence. One afternoon, as they planted flowers along the fence, she asked him about his life in the city. He spoke of long work days, a persistent feeling of not belonging, and a yearning for something more. "Is that why you came here?" she asked. Nathan nodded, his hands still covered in dirt. "I guess I hope to find some clarity, or at least a little peace." Elena smiled, understanding him perfectly. "You came to the right place for that." Then he looked at her, his green eyes meeting hers. "I have," he began softly. The question hung in the air, laden with a meaning Elena wasn't ready to confront. She looked away at the flowers, her hands trembling slightly. A subtle tremor ran through the air, like a premonition of change. That very evening, while bustling with dinner preparations, she sensed an elusive shift in their relationship. Nathan, seated at the kitchen table, was engrossed in an old photo album she had left out earlier. His fingers gently traced the pages, lingering on certain snapshots. "Is this your wedding day?" he asked, pointing to a photograph of her and Jonathan by a church. She nodded affirmatively, continuing to cook. "It feels like a very long time ago." "You look happy," he said, his voice tinged with curiosity or perhaps even sadness. "Yes," she replied, focusing on chopping vegetables. Nathan closed the album and leaned back in his chair, his gaze fixed on her. "And now?" She paused her work and turned to him. "And now I'm just waiting to see what happens next." His gaze softened, and for a moment a silence settled between them. Not awkward, but filled with a peculiar significance. Days passed, and their conversations grew more intimate. She shared with him cherished stories she had kept secret for years. One evening, sitting on the porch under the glow of fireflies, Nathan turned to her. "Have you ever thought about starting fresh?" he asked. "Starting again?" she echoed, not fully grasping his intent. "Yes," he replied, "leaving the past behind, finding something new, someone new." His words were unexpected, but she didn't look away. "I don't know," she confessed. "But it's never too late," he said softly, looking intently into her eyes. The turning point arrived on a rainy day. A sudden thunderstorm had forced them indoors. She was sorting old books in the living room when Nathan joined her. "Can I help?" he asked with a warm voice. She smiled. "Of course, these can go into the donation box." As he knelt beside her, their hands accidentally brushed. The fleeting touch sent sparks through her, a vivid reminder that she was still alive. "Elena," he said quietly. She lifted her head, meeting his gaze. In his green eyes was something she couldn't name, something that made her heart beat faster. Before she could say anything, he took her hand. "You're not alone," he said. Then came the kiss, sweet and thrilling, stealing her senses. It awakened feelings she had long forgotten. He sensed her excitement and expertly touched her body with his hands, fingers, and lips. It was exquisite. She had never experienced anything like it before. He continued until she reached the peak of pleasure. Then it was her turn, and her tongue spoke for her until he too reached his limit. Thus the walls she had built around herself crumbled. The subsequent days were filled with both clarity and confusion. She and Nathan had crossed an invisible line, one they might not have fully comprehended. But there was no denying the warmth and spark he had brought into her life. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves swirled in the air, they decided to walk in the woods. A comfortable silence settled between them, not heavy, as if words were unnecessary. At one point, they stopped in a small clearing. Nathan turned to her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Elena, I've been thinking," he began, his voice a little shaky. She raised an eyebrow, inviting him to continue. "I don't know where this path will lead us," he said, gesturing to the space between them. but I know I don't want to walk it without you." Her breath hitched. The vulnerability in his words touched something deep within her, something she hadn't felt in years. "Nathan," she said, her voice trembling, "I don't have answers. I don't even know if I'm ready to look for them." He softly smiled. "Then let's figure it out together." The simplicity of his words brought tears to her eyes. She had carried the burden of her past alone for so long, convinced it was her cross to bear. But here was Nathan, offering to share it with her without judgment or expectations. Standing in the clearing under the rustling trees, she realized that life doesn't always offer clear solutions or perfect endings. Sometimes it just gives us a chance to begin again. She took his hand, intertwining their fingers. "Together," she repeated, a faint smile gracing her lips. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they sat on the porch, wrapped in a warm blanket. The air was crisp, and the sky was painted in hues of orange and pink. For the first time in many years, she felt a sense of peace, a quiet contentment in knowing that while the path ahead might be uncertain, she wasn't walking it alone. Nathan looked at her, his green eyes reflecting warmth. "You know," he said, "I think this is the beginning of something good." She nodded, her heart swelling with hope. "I think so too." And in that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the world and the promise of the future, she allowed herself to believe. The past was still a part of her, but it no longer defined her. As for the future, well, they would write it together.